Hold on one second.
I'm good.
All right. We're good. Coach Schuman here with Sean Castrina, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. He's built multiple businesses. He's a guy that we wanted to get on the show, especially in these times, to really help guide people from a business standpoint and things they need to talk about, things they need to consider. I think it's really great when we talk about Success for Life podcast. It's not just about making money now, but it's also about figuring out what you want to do and figuring out what you want to be. And there's no better person. Welcome, Sean.
Oh man, I'm excited to be on the show.
Well, but before we get into it, before we get on here, we were talking about some great topics.
We were. I was going to say, if we just dropped in those two, we could go for an hour effortlessly.
Absolutely. And before we do it, just give people a little bit about your background, because I'm going to run right into those.
Hey, I had a Division I wrestling scholarship, got out of college, bet on myself. I took a job for free because I knew that I had one of those personalities where I had sharp elbows and wouldn't work well in a small organization. Went to a company in DC, again, agreed to work for free, was there for like 5 years, thought I had my dream job, get my master's degree, just got married. And then I got let go overnight because there was a leadership change. Decided then that I would never be dependent on anybody for a paycheck. And there started the entrepreneurial journey. And 25 years later, I've started more than 20 companies and 10 really solid core businesses that are, I've had 3 of my businesses reach 20-year anniversaries. And we're in the middle of this COVID. And to be frank with you, I'm not stressing. I'm doing things differently. But I mean, they're durable businesses, even in these, completely crazy times. And then about 8 years ago, I was on a beach vacation with my family and my buddies from college. I pay for my friend. I got 5 really close friends, and I always rent out a beach house every year for their families and ours. And we do a vacation. I sat down and started writing down all the things I wish I would have known, when I first started my companies. And that ended up being my first book, 8 Unbreakable Rules for Business Startup Success. I kind of took all those, things I wrote down, and they kind of all fell into one of the 8 kind of rules. And, and now I have a book coming out May 1st, but I'm going to give it away on your show at the end. I wrote The World's Greatest Business Plan. It's getting ready to come out May 1st. And it's because I have a very simple business plan. And I speak at a lot of colleges. And when I talk to these professors, man, they'll show me a textbook that they're working from, and my head explodes. And then I'll ask the professor, I'll be like, well, hey, give me a little bit of your background, Well, I've been here for 22 years and, and I'm like, okay, I already know you're done.
Failed entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. I literally had one I just spoke at recently, said she was a social entrepreneur. I still do not know what that is. I haven't looked it up on Wikipedia. But so I bought every book on Amazon. I have them right over here in the corner. I bought the whole first page of Amazon books on business plans and just read them. And one was worse than the next because they were long. They were, they weren't practical. They were outdated. They were written by professors who never started a business. So I just sat down and wrote, okay, there's 25 things you really need to know before you start a business. And I wrote this book called The World's Greatest Business Plan. And at the end of your show, I'm going to give it away because it's for people who can't afford to fail. I've never gone into a business thinking I would fail. And I've never gone into a business where I really felt like I could afford to fail. And I think that's the problem with a lot of business plans is that, man, it's okay for a business plan to tell you this isn't a good business, stop. Like I've been 7 questions in and stopped before, where it's like, okay, based on what I see now, this isn't a good business idea. And so I think that's what's different about it. I know we hadn't even thought about talking about this, but I'm just somehow we fell into it. So, hey, that's my newest book that's going to come out. And because I'm on your show, I want to give it away at the end. So I just wrote myself a note to give away the book. So
perfect. Well, we'll definitely. I mean, if you want to let them know as we get towards the end where they can get it, let's definitely do it. And I'll tell you one interesting story. I'll remember this forever. I took in my MBA program when I was in college. I went and got my MBA, and my entrepreneur professor, I put together a whole project on a business that I was actually running at the time. Small business, just like out of my dorm, and we made $140,000 that year. Okay, in revenue, and it was just basically a side project so I could have some more cash.
Yeah.
And I put it together as a business plan to kind of test my entrepreneur professor.
Yeah.
And he gave me a C plus, and he said that thing could never work. From that point forward,
That's it.
I knew that this guy had no idea what he was talking about. He was full of you know what.
Yeah.
And everything that, so, you know, colleges, those professors' jobs essentially is to get you to be able to work for a company.
That's it. One of my dear friends helped me with my first book. He's a professor at Darden, UVA. He runs it. I mean, one of the most esteemed professors in the country. I won't give his name. And he told me that. He said, Sean, we don't have entrepreneurs here. He said, we got guys who want to get a job working at Goldman, JP Morgan and all that. He said, they're not. He said, I don't even think he said, I don't think we could put together a class of 30 entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And that, I always say that's okay. But when you're in an MBA program, you need to be clear as to the objectives for each class, and I think if you're transparent as to what the goal is for them, what they're learning about and what they're going to be, and where you could take that learning, meaning I could take this learning to corporate. Great. I'll go work for Goldman. Great. That's fine. That's what I want to do. I could take this knowledge and become a better entrepreneur. Great. But don't sell it one way, and then when the truth is it's guided to take a job. And like I said, if this is transparency, say, hey, listen, our program, the design is to give you an opportunity to be very successful in a large organization, to be able to work your way through. Maybe you become a CEO if you're really good one day, but you're going to be able to navigate your way through the organization, be successful, have stable income. That's cool. I'm okay with that. But when you're in business school, the way I think about business, and I was, I played football in college and I had a scholarship. So I was able to start my MBA program while still on scholarship, which was a blessing.
Nice. Yeah.
And so I had my first year paid for free. So I didn't have to, go into, like a lot of guys go into debt on this. And I was so young that I didn't know anything. So, I was just doing things, and it was like I was getting indoctrinated to not think the way that I originally thought about business without any knowledge. And then I went, maybe similar to you, I went and worked for a corporation, actually went in North Virginia for a big company, that, great guys, but it was a government contracting company. And then I went and worked for another company in the city. And when I worked for this small company in the city, I realized I wanted to be an entrepreneur because it was a smaller firm and we had a lot of freedom. And I realized, this navigation through the corporate world is not for me. And there's a place for people. And obviously, if you hire employees, you want people that want to work within the company.
I always say, I love people that aren't entrepreneurs. They work for me.
Right. And finding those people that want to do that, but that navigation really, I realized right then and there is like, wait a minute, I want to own a company like this, a small, a company that I can grow. And, I admired the entrepreneurship of the two owners who really, when they wanted me to, hey, Dave, at the time it was Chase Manhattan. Chase Manhattan, there might be a project opportunity over there. Go out there and pitch them. And I was like, yeah, great. And I'd go there, pitch and bring back the deal. Next thing I know, I wasn't even on the commission on time. I was a salary. He boosted my salary up another $15,000 right there because I brought in a $400,000 project. And there was no commission deal. He just brought me and he said, listen, you do stuff like this all the time, I have no problem. Keep boosting your salary up. And I thought, man, I'd like to be in that spot one day and thinking like that. How do I figure out how to make more money and then give people the opportunity to make that money if they buy into it? So long and short of it.
Yeah.
And I think what we were talking about earlier and with Grant Cardone and I would say the good and understanding as an entrepreneur, the good and the bad side of things, and understand what's real, right? Yeah. And what's fairy dust, I guess.
Yeah.
And trying to figure that out, I think is real important. And in the world today, what we got going on, figuring those things out are real important. What are your thoughts on some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny in regards to the Grant situation. I don't want to predicate I don't wish the downfall of anybody, and he's kind of walked back. Who knows where he's at financially?
Right.
But there's a principle there, regardless, no matter how it unwinds itself. It's never how much money you make. It's always how much money you save. I'm old enough to have been around extraordinary, like in our town, the wealth, probably one of the three wealthiest guys. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, where University of Virginia is and UVA. The Rock has a house here. I mean, John Grisham lives here. Howie Long lives here. This was voted one of the nicest cities in America to live 2 years in a row. I mean, this is in a very expensive city to live. A lot of wealthy people live here. I mean, this is like horse country, wine country. Okay. And I used to go to lunch with one of the most powerful people here, and I remember we could go into any restaurant and he could bring his poodle, literally bring the poodle, put it on the table. He could have ordered the poodle anything. The poodle could have crapped literally on that table and nobody in this town would have said anything. They'd have said, "Sir, can we clean it up for you?" And he said, "Yes." And then he went under. He did a real estate deal where he co-signed a deal for his son-in-law for this massive commercial real estate deal. And in the 70s, he leveraged his name against about $100 million in potential losses. 2008, everything went under. They called the note in. He obviously couldn't write a check for that amount of money, or to do it would basically liquidate everything. And he went under completely. And that's similar to this situation in that this is what I tell people, the amount of, you got to have certain money that's never in play, ever in play under any circumstance. Now, if you're pre 30 years old and you live on your parents', basement or your buddy's couch, disregard everything I'm saying because you don't have anything to lose anyway. But once you get to where you get married and you have a family and you have responsibilities, you can never go all in. And don't you think great entrepreneurs ever go all in? No, we calculate every risk return. We know exactly what we're putting up. We know exactly what we can lose, and we know exactly what the payoff can be. And I think we get all hyped up this mindset crap. Man, I feel like I could be a billionaire today. Well, guess what? I've never met an overnight billionaire.
Absolutely. There's a thing with leverage, and I want to, articulate this the right way.
Yeah.
There's leverage that is good in certain cases, but you can't get yourself in a position where you're over leveraged to outmatch your resources. And
that's the problem here.
I learned it myself.
That's what happened in 2008.
Yeah, I learned it myself with my camp business where I run camps all over the country. Yeah. We were kind of one of the first people in the game, and I recognized that. We grew it real fast. And in order to continue to grow it and be, scale, I over leveraged myself.
Yeah.
And I learned the hard way that if you don't prepare for the bad times as well as when it's good, because when it's good,
I would say anybody can steer a cruise ship in a wide open ocean, right?
Right.
Can you run a kayak down, rapid waters with rocks everywhere and waterfalls? That's what it's like in the real world.
Can you survive it, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I had to learn that the hard way. And a lot of entrepreneurs, like I hope from podcasts like this that we can learn that maybe someone can grasp it a little bit better, the understanding of you can't go beyond your resources. And what I mean by resources is, yes, you can extend yourself and take a risk. And obviously, in order to be really successful, a lot of times you got to take risks. But if you put yourself in a position that you can't recover from it if it goes bad, you got to know, okay, if it goes bad, what will happen? Okay. And if you plan for that, when you do take on as much risk as you want to take on, and some guys can handle an insane amount of risk, but you need to know that downside. And with bringing up the Grant Cardone thing, I feel like in some of those things, that's a great lesson to learn there, that someone who can, probably among the best salespeople there are, right? He can get people to amazing salesperson. But I think that when your image takes over and you become a caricature of yourself in a sense,
exactly,
then you almost, now you're becoming enslaved to your own image, and you can't allow that to happen. You can't be so engrossed in who you think you are that you allow it to to purvey in your decision making, and I had to learn that. I mean, look, a lot of business people have to learn it.
Leverage is a scary thing. This idea that this is what I always say: leverage is fine, but I remember in 2008, there's a neat little 3 sentences in every loan that says, if at any time we want to call this loan in, we can. It's there. I didn't know that. And what I know is that if you're leveraging, you always have to ask yourself, if they called these loans in, you know what I'm saying? Or if I went 6 months or a year without payments, there's still rules of finance. The way I look at it is if you can go under in 30 days, you knew you could go under in 30 days, and you had a house of cards. I mean, every good business person knows their runway. I always say, this is what I always tell my accountant: how close are we to the sun? How far are we to getting our ass burned? You know what I'm saying? You got to have distance, and that's cash. It's always cash. It's not lines of credit. It's cash, because they will close up cash. They will freeze cash. I mean, they'll freeze credit in a second, but cash is cash. And that's when you see something go under really, really quick. That's when you knew it was a house of cards. And I always say, somebody there, when this happened with Bernie Madoff and a lot of other people, if you don't have cash, I don't care what you're doing, you don't have a good business.
That's right.
Because cash solves all problems temporarily, at least.
And I even go that most people get it, like when people say, oh, this person's maybe a bad guy. And I said, I would guess that almost everybody gets into it with the best intentions.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I don't think anyone, when people make mistakes like that, it's not because they weren't well intended. They want to succeed. Obviously, they want to succeed. They either overestimated their capabilities, overestimated the marketplace, didn't plan for the downside, right? Or didn't even, and if you did plan for the downside, you weren't real with yourself to acknowledge that there's a downside there and to know it. But yeah, I always say people get into the best intention. No one, very rarely, rarely are people in for something with nefarious mechanisms. It's just that it ends up turning out that way if you don't plan for it, and that's why it's an important thing, right? Because you could be saying like, "Hey, man, I'm a good guy," and you know what?
Yeah.
People that know you're a good guy, but really, they may not know. People may not do business with you again because it's not that they are judging you on your character; they're judging you on your performance, and your performance signals. Be wary. Yeah.
I always. I think Doc. When you own a 50, I know enough about interest rates. I want to know what the payment is on a $50 million jet. Because I can tell you. You know what I'm saying? In other words, why does Warren Buffett start the most successful jet leasing company in the world? Because even he knows you don't buy them.
Right. 100%. 100%.
Very extraordinarily wealthy people lease jets. You lease yachts, you lease jets, you lease islands. There's certain things you don't want to own because it's just a losing proposition. But that's
the only guy that could own a jet and be able to make it work is if you're actually flying yourself, like the guy from Iron Maiden. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary. Yeah. He flies the plane. He actually owns the.
Yes, the face was that way. The actor. Oh gosh. Oh my gracious, Jay. Pulp Fiction. John Travolta.
Yeah.
There's few. Hey, listen, Tiger Woods owned a jet, but he was making $100 million a year. Right. I mean, you got to be in an extraordinary position to do that. I'm just saying it's a big nut to crack. That's all I'm saying. That if you're not for real, that's like feeding a freaking alligator.
What's your guidance for people on, so getting to the entrepreneur part and what's going on right now? Someone wants to go and start a business and or maybe they have a business and they have to pivot it now, right? They got to pivot their business. What are some of the things that you advise? You've owned a lot of business. You had a lot of success. What are some of the things that you advise people from when they're starting a business or have to pivot a business?
Right now, I mean, in some people you can be in a business that's not. I have a super close friend I called the other day. He's had a business for 25 years. And I said, listen, I didn't want to text you because I wanted to call you because I wanted to hear your voice. because I can tell in your voice how bad things are. Texts don't relay, tone. And he has a business that I would told him I would close it. Now, that's hard for an entrepreneur like me, because I'm like, listen, your peak business is based on, like Halloween. He has a party store business,
Right.
a retail so a retail party store business that was great till about 5 years ago,
Right.
But I'm like, okay, your money is going to be made at graduation. You're not going to have that this year. Halloween, you may not have that. So you need a 1 year runway, and that's just to survive. And who knows if the industry will change. Sometimes you got to make a complete pivot. A complete, like, I tried, this was good, but this isn't going to work anymore. And some people, this is where you got to start. And nobody wants to hear this, but sometimes you got to start over. You got to make a mass pivot, because you are going to run into an iceberg. And I always say there's nothing worse than putting good money after bad money. And this is where you got to redo your business plan again, really, where you go to yourself, who's my target customer? How can I reach them? Are they still willing to buy from me? I mean, does our current sales model work? No. I would say to him, your current sales model doesn't work. So that's why you got to go. You always, I do it once a year with my businesses, all my business, but you got to sit down and go, can this continue to work as it's presently set up? And if it's not, you got to either transition it to something completely different, or you got to call it a day, keep as much cash as you can so you can live and breathe to live to fight another day. I don't hold on to bad things. I mean, I've started some successful business, but I also know when to go, hey, this looked really good. I would have bet my life it would have worked, but I'm not willing to bet my life again on it. Based on what I know now,
Right.
Current situation, no, this is probably not the best business to have right now. And it's just a money pit.
What business do you think right now are going to have the most opportunity? I mean, obviously stuff with online and online learning, I would say, is one big area.
Yeah. Online learning is going to be gold. I think a business that I think is going to be great is online tutoring. My daughter's a teacher. I told her, I said, man, do you really think these parents know these kids are learning, believe it? No. Listen to me. If I homeschooled my kid, he'd be an idiot. Are you kidding me? He'd be able to spell one word, ESPN. Okay. And I'd say 70% of parents that are homeschooling their kids right now basically understand that their kids are getting a fraction of the education. And something like this, I think everybody knows, yeah, we may solve it, but something like this could happen again. Once it's happened once, it's potentially can happen again. I think like tutoring for kids is an incredible, to me, if you're a school teacher, you can create a small 3-person, tutoring setup where you're getting 3 times what you'd normally get, but you can do the personal, Susie, turn your book around. Let me see it. Look at that work. You could, and then I just think about that. It's funny because I just told my daughter that, man, I think online tutoring is going to be, everything online, but I'm just thinking how it's going to relate to so many kids with the schooling opportunity. Because every kid, I'm sorry, had a half a year's education this year.
Right.
Period. And every parent knows it.
And what do you think about and bringing up education? This is an industry that I think is, by the way, long overdue for a pivot. Okay, in a lot of ways.
I'm going to make one statement really quick.
Yeah.
I can solve the entire college tuition thing today. Bernie Sanders, I'm going to solve it right now. You're going to love this. Do away. No, I'm serious. When I say this, you're going to think I'm a freaking genius, and I probably have an IQ barely over 80. Listen to me. Get rid of general requirements in college. I know Hitler's bad.
Yeah.
60 feet away from a telephone pole. I don't give a damn what angle it's at. I mean, when you graduate high school, if you can add, subtract, multiply, you can read, write, and you have a general idea of the history of the country you come from, call it a day.
Right.
Go into what's going to make you a living.
Great point. And I'll tell you what's
2 years. That's 2 years.
2 years. I remember, and you're sitting in these gigantic halls with 500 other people, especially at State University, which I went to.
It's 50% of padding. It's 50% of the tuition padded.
I sat in biology. I remember sitting in biology thinking, this was my second year of college. I remember sitting there thinking, I'm never going to be a chemist. I'm never going to be a doctor. This is not my, thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here learning about biology, which I already learned, mind you, in high school. Okay.
That's my whole point. My point is that we could eliminate 2 years, 50% of college tuition. And that one thing that I just said, get rid of general requirements, create internships or entrepreneur, like 1 year, you go in for 1 year and then you do like maybe 2 or 3 months things to kind of find out that you're in your niche or whatever, and then you come back your third year. I mean, I can do it 100 different ways, but our current education system, which is going to come out through this, is that it's going to go even more online, and general requirements to me is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's got to be more specific. And you know what? If you want that, what we call liberal arts education, and you want to pay $60,000 a year, you have the Amhersts of the world and the Williams of the world, and you know what? Those schools are already there, and there's small other, maybe not as high as requirements, other versions of that. But I agree. Like if I'm going to a state university, okay, I'm looking to learn to either A, get a job, B, start a business, or C, going into some form of the public sector. For me, in a way that I can go and go in right from the get-go. Like I remember, and you probably remember this too. My first 2 years of school, I was like, when am I going to be in the get accepted into the business school portion?
Yeah.
It wasn't until I hit the business school 2 years in that I was like, okay, I can really clamp down and then make other classes. If I want to learn about philosophy, I can add that. If I want to learn about exercise physiology or something like that as something, because I want to get a general knowledge, I can add those as almost an a la carte thing to my education.
I paid to take volleyball. I was a Division I wrestler. Why did I pay to take volleyball? I was an NCAA Division I athlete, and I had to take volleyball. I had to take some athletic requirement. I took volleyball. The whole concept is complete. It's complete insanity. Our current system. Listen, if you're listening to this podcast, you understand that we've solved 9 of the world problems in the last 30 minutes.
Well, if you get us all back, so they can lift restrictions and people feel healthy enough that would take another 2-hour podcast to figure out what's exactly going on there. But it's 100%. And so education, I think, definitely is going to pivot. My sister is getting her PhD, and it's all online.
Yeah.
All online, and it's 90% online. It's from Vanderbilt University, and 90%
great school in Tennessee.
What's that?
It's a great school in Tennessee.
Great school. That's where she went to undergrad too. There.
Yeah.
And but she works in athletic administration, and she wanted to get it because continue to advance. She's pretty high up, but to keep going to that next level, that's more required in education, and she does it right online. And that's a top tier university that is beginning to use those tools. And education has to look. I think there's a huge play. I like being in person with people, and there's a place for it. But I agree, specificity is the key. If I'm going to pay money to be with Sean Castrina and sit down and get his knowledge in person, I want it to be specific to what I want to learn.
Exactly. And that's I have a New York Times bestselling author that I pay to have phone conversations with. Okay. And I ask him questions that in 5 minutes, he saves me 10 times what I pay him for that phone call. I'll pay anybody money that can get me there faster or take me further than I can myself. You want to get my checkbook open? Get me there faster or take me further than I can myself. That's mentoring, coaching. And I have coaches. I have a golf coach. I have business coaches people that I value, that I talk to. I've got writing people that help me with my books. I mean, that's precise, specific learning. That's the future. That's money well spent.
There's no doubt. I was thinking in another industry that is probably going to end up pivoting, because you look at the issues with food and delivery, is trucking. Autonomous trucking is going to be, there's going to be an acceleration to get that done, because truckers, they
have power right now.
right?
You want to
They
talk
have
about an
tremendous
industry
power.
that just grabbed everybody by the hose,
Absolutely.
right by the nards, because they have that's that, you know, you see who's durable. You're going to see the industries and the careers that are durable. And trucking right now is wow.
Trucking, exactly. And I think the more that they start to figure certain things out where they can get logistics even better, and the trucker, you're going to need truckers to take the products off, to take them on. But think about if the truckers, okay, can plan their routes a lot more efficiently because of the fact that they don't have to actually do the physical driving, and they can actually figure out what each person needs when they come in there. So I come into the grocery store, this person tells me their needs, I really understand it, I service it, and I don't have to go drive now 12 hours to the next place. Or
No, you're going to be servicing a local area. You're going to
right.
basically, oh no, you're right. Food delivery, grocery delivery, that's going to take a whole new, you know, in everything that disrupts the world, it creates a new world. Some people are going to be very uncomfortable. Some people are going to thrive.
Absolutely. And I and the key is to think what, be able to adapt, and
Yeah.
don't get married. You could uh, I always hear like people talk about, and this is important. You want to have passion for what you do, but don't confuse passion with how you do it. So I love football,
Oh,
right?
oh, I was going to tell you, I'm going to when you're done, I'm going to parallel something. Your head's going to explode because you are preaching one of
Go,
my number
go
one
ahead. Yeah.
points in business. No, listen, my book, I tell people, forget passion. Passion is the most overrated. Listen to me. I'm passionate about golf. It doesn't mean I go out and start a driving range, right?
Right.
You need to be passionate about profit.
Right.
And then it'll pay for every passion you have. I have tons of passions, but they're not good business ideas. I love books. I wouldn't start a retail bookstore. I love golf. I wouldn't own a driving range, nor would I buy a golf course. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm crazy passionate about. It doesn't mean they're a good business. And
Absolutely.
that's what steers so many entrepreneurs into that 50% that fail in the first 2 years. They get passionate about somebody and they assume there's enough of a market of people like them, though they never research it. And then they end up starting something that nobody wants to buy.
Absolutely. And what I was saying is that, like, so let's say you're a wrestler and your passion was, I'm going to start a wrestling school. And there at one time there was, I mean, that's going to be something that's really popular in the Midwest and the Northeast, these wrestling schools.
Yeah.
Well, how will that change? How will wrestling change as a sport going forward because of this? And it's going to be much more. You're not going to be able to have 50 guys in a wrestling room
Yeah.
breathing hot air, right? Until
It could be done. I mean, it's possible. I mean, until you have
but
a
you have to
vaccine,
figure out.
yeah.
So when you have your passion, you figure out, okay, now where can I teach people that takes it somewhere off the mat too? So I can't just be
Yeah.
aligned to only the physicality part of it, which is obviously, if you want to become great, you still got to have the
Yeah.
physicality part of it.
Yeah.
But what are the things I could do to continue to get better at what I'm doing? And if that's my business, wrestling, what are other revenue streams from it? I own a wrestling school, but what are the other revenue streams that may even be bigger than the quote unquote wrestling
Yeah.
part of it, right?
You look at the model. I always say like if it was wrestling is just the it's like the diamond in the ring, but the ring is what really matters. You can drop a lot of different stones in there is my point. Example, if you can start a certain camp, you can start a camp for almost anything. Never fall in love with the
Correct.
specificity of it. Fall
Absolutely.
in love with a successful business model. That's what I always tell people. I own a construction business. I don't know the difference between two screwdrivers. I could not build a 3-piece birdhouse. Honest to goodness truth. But I make millions. I'm not passionate about construction. In my area, I just knew there was a need. You couldn't get anything done. And then, we started there and we added 8 companies. Now we can build you, a 7-figure custom house. We can do anything you want. But again, I don't know anything about construction. I do know how to market. I know how to hire extraordinarily talented people. I'm very good at putting all the players on the field. My point is that this passion idea is so deceptive. I just look for positions in the marketplace where there's a great need. I'm passionate about business. The actual vehicle is irrelevant. The specificity of the business is completely irrelevant to me. Business, the system of business, leading a business, that's what excites me.
That's the hardest thing, I think, for people to understand. They get
Absolutely.
so lost, and to bring up another motivational speaker that
Yeah.
especially the young people love, Gary V. Okay.
Yeah.
Gary V is always going off on these tangents of these different things. And I feel that though he's incredibly intelligent and I think it works for him, that's an important thing.
Yeah.
People have to understand what
Never build a model around an outlier. This is what I tell
correct.
people.
Absolutely.
Gary is a genius. No
Right.
criticism in any way. He
Right.
is an outlier. He is that unicorn. You can't, you can't, there's certain people you're never going to duplicate in time, in space, in history. They are that unicorn. And Gary is that unicorn.
That's 100% right, and that's your point is so valid. I like to use sports analogies because obviously a lot of the things I do with sports. The best football player does not make the best coach, and that's
Never.
the
Very rarely.
So when people seek out, if you were to seek out Donald Trump or Bill Gates, and he could go and tell you exactly how he did it,
You'd
you
never follow it.
probably are not as talented as him.
No.
And you probably don't have his brain. You don't have what goes through his thoughts every single day, unless we figure out how to tap into the brain knowledge of somebody and transfer.
Find the average guy that became rich.
Exactly.
That's the guy you want to follow. The guy that you look at and you go, man, what is so darn special about him? Hey, listen, when I see Tiger Woods hit a golf ball at 20, I knew he was going to be kind of special. There was something a little unique about that, okay? It ain't hard to – an outlier violates every rule. Correct. And you admire them, but you're probably not going to be them.
Right. You admire them. You can take nuggets from them, but you're more than likelihood not going to be them. And unless you could separate yourself from that, it's going to be very hard. Take a person that has been very successful, exactly what you said, that is not gifted with everything that someone might have gifted with. And, I would say, Gary says, I work 18-hour days. Well, I could just tell you that the average person who could be very successful is not going to have the stamina to be able to work 18-hour days for 10 years. They're just not. They won't make it.
I take naps, audience, just so you know. I love an afternoon nap. Okay?
I love
them. I don't want to work 18 hours. Guess what? When I was in my 20s, I realized I didn't want to work 18 hours. I became an entrepreneur, so I didn't have to work 18 hours. Right. So, you have certain people that they go at that. And I would tell you that, hey, listen, my dad worked 18 hours a day and he was broke as he can be. Hard work does not necessarily make you wealthy either.
Correct. Understanding where to go. And it's so what are some tips you could give people that are real practical that, I'm not going to say any entrepreneur because you obviously still have to have talent as an entrepreneur. Yeah. But
I'll tell them how to have a great business idea. Everybody, let's say you wanted to start a business. I'm going to give you the fail-proof method. I already told you passion's not it. Be passionate about building something successful. Okay? What that is irrelevant. But this is how you start a great business. It's always the same. Solve a problem, fill a need, or meet a desire. Let's go through every single business you can run through. My Pillow solved the problem. Sleeping. Tommy John underwear. Okay, you want to fix something down there because your underwear is uncomfortable. Third Love bras, because they didn't have bras in half sizes. If you've ever seen them things, they do come in half sizes in real life. Okay, my point is that almost every business will solve a problem or it'll meet a need. I need food. I want to go out. Okay, I have a need for something. And then you have a want. That desire. I want a Nike shoe and not just this shoe. I want a sandals vacation and not that vacation. So anytime that you run into a problem in your life, there's probably a business there. Every business I have started that succeeded wildly was because I experienced a need I could not get enough people in my area to solve it at a price that I thought was fair, or they couldn't do it at the quality that I thought was necessary, or I couldn't, it wasn't convenient enough. There was always a reason why I couldn't get the problem solved the way I thought it should have, at the price, at the quality, at the speed. And I said, there has to be other people like me. And that has been the blueprint of my companies. I solve a problem. I create a business model around solving that problem. The rest is truly history. Everybody's looking for this aha idea. I haven't had the aha idea yet.
Yep.
I find a problem, think of a good way to solve it. I recruit people to work with me on it, bring on partners. That's my super skill is business partnering. And then I get that business started, pass it over to my partner, work my way out a little bit, and then rinse and repeat. I've been doing that for 25 years.
Brilliant.
So solve problems, fill a need, a desire, and you will have a good business.
Well, if you look at the wealthiest people in the world, even Bill Gates did not invent DOS.
No, he bought it from somebody. He bought it from somebody.
Mark Zuckerberg did not invent social media. He was actually after Friendster and MySpace. He saw what was done and he said, well, let me try this. And it took
number 11. Google was the 11th search engine.
Right. Remember Alta Vista?
Yeah.
All the other ones. Right. They learned from what was already done. And you know, first mover, pure first mover is not necessarily an advantage. It actually can be a disadvantage. This is one of the things the first thing they teach you in business school is you got to have first mover advantage. Okay. And I think for a long time, when I was starting my career, I was always looking for first mover advantage. Yeah. Actually, the key is to learn from the first mover's failures.
It's funny you said it. I talk about it. Competition is great. Listen to me. If somehow you get the perfect blue ocean space and you're the one in a million, hey, more power to you. Listen to me. The guy who came up with Uber, I got to give it to you.
Right.
Great idea. My brain doesn't work that way. I'm good at looking at something that already exists and vastly improving on it. So I like competition because I look at my competition, I kind of carve my niche. Wow, I noticed that their pricing, or man, they didn't have somebody answer the phone very fast, or it went to voicemail. And I kind of look at, these are what they're doing. And I carve a wonderful niche and then I get rich. So first mover, that's a rarity that you get totally wide open blue ocean space. Typically somebody's going to come in, look at what you're doing, they're going to improve on it. And it gives you a model to work from.
And that's, and you have to, and including the Microsofts of the world, and one day this will happen to Facebook too. Someone else is going to come in, and Microsoft had to pivot many times to be able to recapture market share. Apple failed after being wildly successful, failed, and then regrouped and was reborn. And there's a lot of things that go into it, and Apple could fail again. As
Apple had none of their products were the first. They didn't have the first. The music thing. What was it called? The MP3. They weren't the first at that. They didn't have the first cell phone. They weren't the first computer. I mean, none of it was first. They just did it better than everybody.
That's it. And I think with that, I think we can
wrap it up,
because that was fantastic. And that I don't know if we could top that. You blew my mind. You dropped all kinds of knowledge on there. And you can't beat it. I have to put my drop of knowledge on it, because that's what you did right there. You drop knowledge on people.
Can I give these people my book? I want to do that.
Yes.
Listen, I'm going to give you the world's greatest business plan, and it's free. It's a $20 book. It's digital. You can type out your business plan. Just go to SeanCastrina.com. That's Sean, SEAN, Castrina, just like it sounds, SCASTRINA, Castrina.com, or world's greatest business plan /free book.com /free book. Either way, and you can get this free book. It'll be to you in a second. Literally, you type in your thing and you'll get it immediately. We're not trying to sell you anything. During these times, I was just like, you know what? Create the digital version, give it away immediately. I had my team do that a week ago. So again, if you go to worldsgreatestbusinessplan.com/free book, you can get it, or you can go to my personal site. Either way, you'll get the free book. I promise you, it's the best business plan book you'll ever read.
Good. Perfect. And I'll keep this up as we finish out, and so they could see. Can they go to SeanCastrina.com?
Yeah, absolutely. They go to SeanCastrina.com, and they don't have to backslash anything. They can just go to SeanCastrina.com.
And they can go and get the free book right there.
Yeah,
and
that's the easiest way for simple people like me.
Yeah. Someone like me, I get that's perfect. So the world's greatest business plan, SeanCastrina.com.
Yep.
Thanks so much
right there
for being on. And that's probably the best place to reach out to you. Have any Twitter or anything like that if someone wants
when I'm on Instagram and all that. So you can DM me on that. But hey, I want to give you the book. That's the most important thing. Whatever leads from there will lead from there. If you're going to start a business and you have a trying business right now, you need to go back and do a business plan. I don't care how old your business is. Just go back and do a business plan and make sure you have a competitive business in this marketplace.
Man, it was fantastic. I'm glad we got to get you on.
Great. We had trouble. I messed up our morning.
Don't worry. This more than made up for it. And I learned a ton personally. I really thank you for coming on. Those listening live, you'll be able to go to successforlifepodcast.com to be able to see more on this. I'll put all this information in the show notes as well. It's been streaming live on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook this whole entire time. So we'll obviously save that so people can go and get all that information. And I'll put it on the show notes. Thanks so much, Sean, for being on. And you ever need anything, man, I'll have you on anytime.
All right. Genuinely, thank you. And thanks to your audience.
Thank you.